This week we are continuing the subject of faith. Last week we were reminded that faith is not something that we rely on only when the big tests come, but as a daily exercise and application. It is something that we practice. It is a part of our lives, and it's necessary for our spiritual growth. I love this quote by Margaret Cundiff. She writes, "Lord, I so soon get thrown by circumstances. I panic over little things. Faith goes out the window. Be patient with me. Remind me of all the way you have brought me, provided for me. Feed me with your living word that I may grow in understanding and trust and love. Don't give up on me, will you? But I know you won't, because you promised you wouldn't, and you always keep your promises." This reminds me sometimes of my daily life. I forget that what I perceive as struggles are opportunities to build my faith. There are three things that I've noticed that are necessary to build faith, to keep our faith active, just like that muscle that we exercise. The first thing is to allow ourselves to be called to faith. I love being comfortable. I hate being inconvenienced. But without faith, without constant application of it, I won't build that muscle. James 2:26 says that faith without works is dead. I believe that's so true. And of course, I'm reminded of Hebrews chapter 11. That entire chapter is devoted to great examples of faith. It starts off in verse 1 that gives us an example where it says, "Faith is the confidence that what we hope for will actually happen. It gives us assurance about things we cannot see. Through their faith, the people in days of old earned a good reputation." And the chapter goes on and tells us of those ones who lived by faith. I'm just going to read the first couple words of each example, and I can't read all the examples because the whole chapter is devoted to them. Let's see if there's a pattern. Verse 4, "It was by faith that Abel brought a more acceptable offering to God than Cain did." Verse 7, "It was by faith that Noah built a large boat to save his family from the flood. He obeyed God." Verse 8, "It was by faith that Abraham obeyed when God called him to leave home and go to another land." Verse 11, "It was by faith that even Sarah was able to have a child, though she was barren and was too old." All these examples of faith are not saying, so they sat down daily, they read the Bible, and they tried to practice what they read. No. In each of these examples, they were defined as faithful by their actions, by their compliance to what God had asked them to do. Their act of faith was a declaration because they responded to God. We need to be like the prophet Isaiah, who when God sent him on a commission said, "Here I am, send me." Are we allowing God to test our faith? God has said in the scriptures that he can examine our kidneys. He knows our true purpose. He knows every fiber of our being. So are we trusting him that whatever situation we go through, that this will work out to manifest our faith? That this is a simple relationship building with God. That he allows things to work out for his and our favor. The second thing I think about is that we need to feed our faith. If we think about that scripture in John 3, verses 16, that God gave his only son, that God gave his only son so that we may have everlasting life. Those who practice faith have everlasting life. And the Bible commentary says that this is not a quantity, but a quality of time. And this quality of time is measured, how? By our participation of faith in God's promise to us. Your life is measured by the participation of faith in God's promise. And in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6, it does mention that without faith, it is impossible to please God. This is relationship building. This is changing our life. How do we build a solid foundation? I think about what Jesus said as he was responding to the Pharisees and Sadducees in Matthew chapter 22 and verse 37. They were trying to trick him about his religious beliefs and what was the most important commandment. And Jesus replied, You must love Jehovah your Lord with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. We give our heart, mind, and soul to God. That is faith. That is realizing that we personally do not have the answers. And Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 8, it's even more straightforward. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. Don't be impressed with your own wisdom. Instead, fear the Lord and turn away from evil. Are we receptive to this? Is our faith grounded by love and trust in what God says? Do we allow every action to be informed by this faith? And the third thing I think is important that was we welcome the outcome of our faith. We cannot possibly know the end result. And I know sometimes that's a little challenging and scary, and it makes us question why. But Hebrews chapter 5 and verses 8 says, and it's talking about Jesus, that even though Jesus was God's son, he learned obedience from the things he suffered. What Christian skill are we learning? And 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 7 through 9, it talks about to be truly glad when we have to endure many trials. Because, verse 7, these trials will show that your faith is genuine. It is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold, though your faith is far more precious than mere gold. So when your faith remains strong through many trials, it will bring you much praise and glory and honor on the day when Jesus Christ is revealed to the whole world. So faith is joyous. I'm going to turn over to 1 John in chapter 5 and verse 4. It says, for every child of God defeats this evil world, and we achieve this victory through our faith. Only those who have faith and believe in God and Jesus can be victorious. Because there's so many things in the world. If I think about all the trials and tribulations that come my way on a daily basis that I'm really not a part of, but it's the spirit that's in the world and that we have to deal with on a daily basis. One of the things that allows me, if I could use the word freedom, is the building of my faith, because I know that this is only temporary and that through faith and believing in God with my whole heart, mind, and soul, trusting with him and living in his love, that my even present world situation on day to day is changed. I think about the verse in Matthew on a daily basis when I'm challenged, not only with my beliefs, but in the spirit and trying to live a life of love and compassion when the world seems to be going in the opposite direction. I think about the responsibility that God has placed on us to keep us faithful servants. I remember in Matthew chapter 25, verses 23, when Jesus talks about the parable of the 3 servants and the one servant who received 2 bags of silver, and then he had double that. What was Jesus' response, or the master? The master said, well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. Yes, let's celebrate our faith.